Jerusalem did not fall in 607. Now, of course, most witnesses obviously don't know that. Most Christians haven't the foggiest idea when Jerusalem fell. Most Christians don't even know who Nebuchadnezzar was, for that matter. So it can hardly be unusual that most Jehovah's Witnesses that go door to door don't hear too many Christians correcting them concerning this error that the society teaches that Jerusalem fell in 607. Well, how can you show someone when Jerusalem fell? How do we know it fell in 586? I mean, it might have fallen in 607. How do I know? Well, that's what we're going to look at. And we're going to get a little bit involved. The reason is this. Some of you have gone out witnessing with me in encounters, and I don't think I have ever had the opportunity of sitting down and sharing all the information that I'm going to share with you tonight with the Jehovah's Witness. It just hasn't happened. But you know that the better you know a subject, the better you're able to distill it down into a shorter presentation that makes sense to the person you're talking to. If you don't know your subject, you're not going to be able to communicate with someone rapidly and well in the witnessing situation. So I give you all the information, I explain it to you so you have the whole background, and you may only be able to spend 5 minutes on the subject with a witness. But if you have all this information in your background, you will be able to present that information in the best way you possibly can to the particular Jehovah's Witness that you're speaking to. And so we present it in a good bit of detail so you can have a solid understanding. Now, how do you establish an ancient date? Any ancient date. And when I'm talking ancient here, I'm talking, maybe from 500 years after Christ on, being the ancient world. How do you establish a date back there? Well, first you look for fixed dates. A fixed date is a date that has astronomical an astronomical foundation behind it. When I say an astronomical foundation, realize that there's only one absolutely accurate timekeeper around. The heavens above us move in perfect order. Today, an astronomer could tell you exactly where a particular planet is going to be at a particular time 1,000 years from now with minute accuracy. In the same way, ancient people made observations of the stars and made such good observations of the stars that a modern astronomer can take those observations and determine exactly when that took place. In fact, in reference to, for example, eclipses of the moon, we can determine the very time that it took place within a few minutes, hundreds and even thousands of years ago. And so these astronomers would make note of these things, and they would write it down and say, this happened at such and such a time in the reign of such and such a king, in the X year of his reign, in the 37th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, this happened. Well, when we find out exactly when those astronomical projections were taken, we can determine right when that was, and that gives us a fixed date in history upon which to begin hanging our information. If we know that the king's 37th year was this year, then we know when his first year was. We can calculate back and determine that. We can determine when he took the throne by doing that. And so you find these fixed dates. Then another thing used are king lists. It's to be sort of like our, in our junior high schools or our grade schools, up above the chalkboard, you'll have a list of the presidents of the United States, and a lot of times the years that he was in office up there. Well, that's nothing new. Thousands of years ago, in a palace, for example, one of the big columns that would support the roof, on there they would chisel in king lists. And this king reigned this many years, and he did that, and the other thing, and this was his god, and all the rest of the stuff. And then this king reigned, and how long he reigned, and things like this. And so these king lists are extremely valuable, because if you can find a fixed date in one of those kings, you've just developed a chronology for those kings that went before and after, if the king list is accurate. So you get fixed dates, you get king lists. Then you have cuneiform tablets. Now, thousands of these things have been found. Now, if you go to a store right now and buy something, they get out a carbon and they write you out a receipt and you get the carbon of that. Well, they didn't have carbon paper back then. You got out a big old clay tablet and you chiseled into it, on such and such a day I sold such and such to such and such. And when you dated it, you dated that cuneiform tablet. For example, if a person in Babylon were to sell an ox to someone else, they would write out on this tablet, and they would date it. Let's say they dated it. They sold him on the first day of the 6th month of the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, which would be written out 6/1/2 Nebuchadnezzar. 6th month, 1st day of the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar, and it was dated to the king's reign. And so when you have thousands of these tablets that have been discovered with this dating system on it, you can get an idea of how long these kings reigned by the dates that are placed upon these cuneiform tablets. And finally, you take all that information and you put it all together. You correlate it to one another. And this is how you establish ancient dates. Let's do that for the time period that we're most interested in, and that is, can we determine when the events of the Bible took place, specifically the fall of Jerusalem to Nebuchadnezzar that is recorded in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles? Can we determine when that happened? I think we can. Let's look at the astronomical data. The first piece of astronomical data that's important to us is called VAT 4956. Now, this is an ancient tablet that records astronomical observations made during Nebuchadnezzar's 37th regnal year. In other words, it says right on there, these were made during the 37th year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Okay? Now, by examining those astronomical observations, we are able to tell that the year in which this happened was 568-67. Now you say, why not just 568 or 567? Our year starts basically in the middle of winter. Ancient years did not. So whereas we would have, okay, here's January, and here is December, and this is 1 year. Let's say this is the year for us, 568 BC. The Babylonians and Jews and most other people did not